Hey gardeners, Amy here with Garden Up. I realized the other day that I wrote this script way back in January, but I never filmed it. So it never got posted, and I apologize for how late my annual review is. I like to post these every year. It's almost like journaling to me. It's a way for me to think about the year, about what went well and what didn't, and I love sharing my successes and failures with others so you can celebrate and commiserate with me as well as learn from me, especially if you are in a similar business. So I'm recording this in the middle of July, 2025, talking about the year 2024 as if it's still January and all this stuff just happened. I know it's late, but I still wanted to post this, not just because I don't want to miss a journal entry, but also because it sets up a pretty major announcement that I'll be making in a few more weeks. So watch all the way to the end and stand by for some pretty mind-blowing news coming soon. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Okay, here we go. Pretend it's still January. Best year I've ever had. Finally recovered from COVID and the damage to the economy, made a decent profit for the first time in years, and had the biggest and coolest project of my career so far. First things first, I'd like to announce the grand opening of my new Etsy store. This is where you can now order seeds for swamp milkweed as well as several other types of seeds that I collect from my garden. I'm hoping this helps to expand my reach for sharing seeds for pollinator plants, as well as help cover the costs of collecting, cleaning, packing, and shipping. So check the link below to order some seeds. I'll get the shortest topic out of the way first. My YouTube channel just finished its 5th year. Wow! Half a decade. That is hard to actually fathom. It has amassed 6,500 subscribers, and YouTube paid me $2,092.18 last year. Woohoo! Never mind that I spent over $1,000 on equipment and editing just last year, and that doesn't include whenever I paid an assistant to help me film, because filming payroll is mixed in with all the other administrative payrolls. That also doesn't consider my time planning, researching, filming, prepping, reviewing, and posting each video. Also, I've spent just shy of $8,000 on editing and equipment since starting the channel 5 years ago, and I've made just under $3,600 in that time. YouTube is definitely not for the faint of heart. If you're thinking of making a channel, make sure you actually enjoy doing all of the stuff it involves, because it may be a long time, if ever, before it pays off financially. So anyway, I have a long way to go before the channel starts turning a profit, but I very much appreciate those of you who watch my content, and the special thanks to those who subscribe and interact. You guys make this so much fun. Thank you. Regarding Garden Up and its success, here's a brief history to catch you up, because this will be important for what happened last year. I started to make a decent profit in 2018 and 2019. 2020 should have been a good year, especially with the extra PPP and EIDL stimulus money, but to use them the way they were designed, I needed to pay more out in wages. So I had my employees do extra trainings, and the costs added up faster than I realized. I also gave generous raises to help my employees keep up with rising costs and inflation during COVID, which meant my expenses rose significantly. I rose my prices in an attempt to keep up, but it wasn't enough. When I opened for the new season in 2022, I took a short-term draw on my credit line to cover payroll. This is pretty normal in March and April because I have to cover about 3 payrolls before payments start coming in from clients. But I usually have it all paid back within a few weeks and pay very little in interest, if any interest at all. That didn't happen that year, though. And my husband, Matt, and I ended up having to borrow over $20,000 to loan to the company in order to pay off the high-interest credit line. This was a low point for my business. We despise debt, and we hate paying interest. We were personally debt-free, and I've always run my company debt-free. But by the end of 2022, Garden Up had still not been able to repay the money borrowed. I adjusted my prices and began 2023 with a goal: figure out why I wasn't making money anymore. We had created a new project rate in 2022 for the big cleanups and projects and should have been absolutely rolling in money. So why were we bleeding out? It was then that I discovered SCORE and got a mentor. SCORE is a fantastic program for anyone who owns or wants to own a business. They offer free and low-cost classes in every business topic imaginable and free mentors. My mentor is Ron, and he is fantastic. He went over my previous tax returns and financial statements. He helped me fix a few errors that I had made on my balance sheet and profit and loss statements, and he worked with me to help me figure out why I wasn't making a profit anymore. It came down to my overhead being far higher than I realized, or even imagined. I found out that my overhead was $440 per day before I even paid myself. So that was a slap across the face. I made a spreadsheet to play with the numbers, and my assistant did some market research to find out what other gardeners charge, and I realized I was severely underpriced. We were charging $40 an hour at that time, and that was the lowest price reported on the internet in a wide spectrum of prices that averaged around $65 and topped at over $100 per hour. I didn't want to, but I made an emergency mid-year price adjustment. I won't sugarcoat it. I was scared to send out those letters. I thought I'd lose at least a quarter or more of my clients. But the feedback I got was completely supportive. When the dust settled, I only lost 4 clients, and I still had over 80 clients with active maintenance agreements, and we kept growing from there. That's the history. Back to 2024. Those changes worked. In 2024, I was able to pay off the debt by July, and in September, we did our first profit share since 2019. I gave everyone raises, and we even had another profit share at the end of the year. Even better, we'll be able to start 2025 without raising prices. I always do an annual cost of living raise of at least $1 an hour for everyone that comes back, and this year will be no exception. I will also be offering a higher starting wage to attract more gardening talent. 2024 was about boundaries, which may not sound fun, but it was a game changer and set up a solid foundation for success that year. Around the end of 2023, I realized that I can reasonably manage 4 projects at a time before I start getting overwhelmed. 5, I can do for a short amount of time, but more than that, and I tend to get overwhelmed and scatterbrained, and I start dropping balls all over the place. But really, what I needed was systems. Organized systems to help me keep track of things. I tried several things, but none really worked. That's where a new hire absolutely changed everything. I met her at a job fair. I had a booth. She was looking for a job. She was a landscape designer who had recently moved here but hadn't found a new company to work for yet. I didn't need a full-time designer, but I asked her if she'd be interested in some part-time work to help her get by until she found something full-time, and she agreed. My biggest question was, what do the big companies do that I don't? What am I missing? She walked into my office on her first day, looked around, and said, "Where's your Gantt chart?" I was like, "What's a Gantt chart?" Guys, this thing blew my mind. I don't know how I got through 4 academic years of college, earning degrees in both landscape management and interior design, and not once did any teacher mention this freaking concept. Once I saw what it was, I realized that I'd seen one on a field trip once, but no one had ever talked about this type of chart in class. A Gantt chart is a project management tool that tracks where each project is at and what's next by days or weeks at a time. It is literally clients down the side and weeks of the year across the top. Simple. You know what's coming next because it says what's next on the chart. I tried to create similar charts to help me manage things, but they all missed that one key element. Mine were always the next step along the top. But it was simply organized by step, not by the calendar. So each project was at a different step, and it was hard to keep track of. Organizing it by the weeks of the year was a game changer. So we created a spreadsheet, and I also ordered a beautiful big whiteboard because I prefer tactile displays and didn't think I'd use the spreadsheet. Turns out I freaking loved the spreadsheet so much that we never even used the whiteboard, so it's just a pretty thing on the wall now. We started filling it out with the 4 projects I was currently working on. Then we added the ones that still needed some follow-up from the previous year. Then we added all the open items that current clients needed, and I realized why I felt like I was drowning all the time. I was managing 18 different projects. That's a few more than 4. But using the Gantt chart, I was able to plan and execute so easily. I was able to plan ahead and schedule over a week in advance, which I'd never been able to do before. Now I can take a lot more projects on at a time without feeling overwhelmed, but I'll probably still limit myself to 4 or 5 at a time just to be safe. We had a lot of favorite projects this year. One was the ivy that ate the house. This was one of those projects that seems overwhelming when you're in the middle of it, but then you step back and you see your progress, and it's so fulfilling. Stand by for my Weed Wednesday video on English ivy to see that excitement. We completed 9 Spokanescapes and Waterwise Gardens. Then, the biggest milestone project of my career so far. Country homes. Guys, I can't even describe how awesome that was. It was such an honor to serve my community, and I truly appreciated the opportunity. Not to mention the honks and friendly waves from all of you that drove by and saw us working. The full story of what we did and how that project came to pass is a 20-minute video by itself, and it's a video that I still intend to finish and post. It's just taking me a long time to put it together. So I won't get into too much detail here, but the short version of the story is we have a 2-mile corridor stretching through the northwest part of our city that has been poorly cared for since its installation over 10 years ago. Most of the plants are dead and were just left there. No one ever pulled weeds. They were sprayed occasionally, but that was it. And the whole thing just looked like a mess. Well, I managed to secure the government contract to clean it up. I had never had a government contract before, so this was a whole new experience. We got in there and tore out over 1,000 dead plants, pulled a few weeds that were really bugging me, and made it look so much nicer. I was actually told not to do much weeding because our contract was only to remove the dead plants, and pulling the weeds would make the maintenance contractor look a lot better than they are. But the noxious weeds that were there, just sitting there, blooming and seeding, as well as a giant clump of catnip, were just obnoxious and glaring me in the face, so I took care of those for my own sanity. It was so satisfying to drive up that corridor and see the difference. Thank you, Spokane, for the opportunity to serve you in such a meaningful and beautiful way. Now, on to what's next. We're hoping to secure the maintenance contract for country homes this year. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. I had a whole plan for it. I would have 2 to 4 people start on the south end of the corridor and work north, weeding and detailing the whole thing. It would actually be cleaned up all the way. It would take us 2 to 3 weeks working there every day to detail the entire corridor. Then we would go back over it and do it again, just like I do with all of my clients. We weed everything and clean it all up in one big, massive job. Then we let it sit for a few weeks so that any weed roots that we missed will resprout and any seeds that are left in the soil will germinate. The second cleanup is always much faster than the first, so it would take us 1 to 2 weeks to finish the second cleanup. Then we would order massive amounts of wood chips and mulch the whole thing. Once that was done, we would check it for weeds once a month, and that would be that. It would look so much better than it does right now, and it would be much easier to maintain. Once the initial investment is done, the county would save money. The county and I had also discussed replanting with new shrubs and perennials, which was tentatively planned for fall. Sadly, that won't come to pass for at least a couple more years. The current maintenance company has 2 years left of their contract, and the county determined that they cannot cancel an existing contract just to resubmit it for a new bid. So we have 2 more years to wait for this opportunity to come up again, but we are well placed to get it, so keep your fingers crossed for us. In the meantime, we are plenty busy with several other exciting projects, including several Spokanescapes and a Firewise design, which is new to our scope of services this year. Check out my Firewise video if you'd like to make your landscape a little bit more Firewise. Now, flash forward to 2025 and I'll share a couple good things that have happened so far this year. We are fully staffed and our crew is awesome. We still have a wait list that has not had less than 150 names on it in over 3 years. We are still calling those oldest entries, but a lot of those have found other solutions. So if you are on the list patiently waiting for a call, I'm going to tell you a secret. Call us again. Those that are on the wait list but call us again are getting bumped to the top because we know you still want our services and you've already been waiting. So call us again. You might just get a consultation. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss my big announcement coming in a few weeks. Like this video if it was valuable to you, and leave a comment with some thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you in the garden.